The Learning Journey in association with Turn It Up Tuesday, hosted by Ross Audio, presents Did You Know? This week we will look at the Caribbean solidarity, the fight against apartheid in South Africa and its enduring significance. Let me start off with a story. When Nelson Mandela died, my daughter was in high school in the United States. She went to school that morning and told a friend of hers that Nelson Mandela had died. The friend responded by saying, "Who is Nelson Mandela? Was he a boxer?" Certainly, he was not a boxer, but he was someone who dedicated his life to ensure that his countrymen and women would see a better tomorrow. Let me say that we must remember the history, and that's why I'm doing this one today, because after all, we must explore the apartheid system, which was an institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination system. It was designed to maintain white minority rule and suppress black majority population. But what is the connection between the Caribbean and South Africa? Both regions share a common history. Colonization was a part of their system. Slavery was a part of the system, and of course, racial discrimination. These aspects shape their political, economic, and cultural identities. This shared history has created a bond between the Caribbean people and South Africa, as they both struggled for freedom and equality. So in summary, the Caribbean people and South Africa were both colonized. They were influenced by European powers, leading to exploitation of their resources and people. This shared history shaped their ongoing struggles for independence, freedom, and equality. So let us continue our connection, African diaspora and slavery in the Caribbean. Let's look at this within the Caribbean context. Millions of Africans were forcibly transported to the Caribbean as slaves, leading a deeply ingrained African heritage and cultural influence in the region. The legacy of slavery still impacts the Caribbean today. The apartheid system was the combination of long history of racial discrimination and segregation policies implemented by the colonizers. These policies systematically oppressed the black majority population, leading to widespread international condemnation and resistance. And of course, you had people like Bob Marley, Peter Tosh singing out their lives to ensure that their voices were heard, to ensure that the oppressors were no longer in power. There was support in the Caribbean against the apartheid movement. Statements and actions by the Caribbean governments were also part of it. They always condemned the apartheid system, often advocating for sanctions against South Africa and supporting African National Congress, that's the ANC, in various international forums. The support demonstrated a commitment for upholding human rights and promoting racial equality. Let me also mention, I think the Caribbean voice was stronger than our North American partners, as many will put it. The Caribbean community took a stand against apartheid. From CARICOM, a regional organization, to musicians, as said before. Let us look at some of the implications as it relates to sanctions. Many Caribbean companies and governments boycotted South Africa. And of course, they became isolated economically. The reality is, as Caribbean people, we are strong together. We can move mountains. At one point, we all had a common mission, and that was to break down the apartheid system in South Africa. I remember the day when Nelson Mandela was freed. He had moved from becoming a terrorist, as he was classified by the oppressors, and he had become a freedom fighter. Textbooks had to change, and so storylines had to change, how things change. Notwithstanding, we must reflect on this great man and the Caribbean's influence on making this a reality. We did it by songs, we influenced the culture, and of course we boycotted many of their goods. As Caribbean people, we should have a sense of pride, because what we contributed to will never be forgotten, or should never be forgotten. We must also tell the stories to our children so that they understand that Nelson Mandela and what he sought to fight for was also influenced by the Caribbean people. That's all for now. Over to you, Rossi.